What's up guys, and welcome to Filmmaker Friend, the series where we talk about all the basics and all the fundamentals of filmmaking to help you make better films. In this video we are going to be finally finishing our little trilogy of shot compositional videos, and we're going to be talking about shapes, lines, and the golden ratio. Let's get into the video. So, shapes. What do I mean by using shapes in your shot composition? Well, there's a couple of different things. First off, you've got using shapes in character design or location design and stuff like that, where there's basically three rules when it comes to shapes. You've got squares, triangles, and circles. Triangles tend to be used for more dangerous characters, more dangerous locations, whereas circles tend to be more friendly locations and friendly characters. If you look at animated films and their character designs in animated films, you'll find all the friendlier characters are all circle based in their design, and all of the villains or the not as nice people or the dangerous people are more sharp in their sides, and then squares tend to be for strong characters. However, that's more design rather than the production side of filmmaking. That's more pre-production rather than production. So in the production, you've got, and in actual like shot composition is what we're talking about today, you've got shapes that are made up of lines rather than enclosed 2D shapes. So the first one that I want to be talking about is S-curves, and S-curves can be as pronounced as literally the letter S, where it's all curving in on each other, or it can just be like a slight wavy line. And what they do is they help lead your viewer's eye backwards and forwards through the frame. As your audience member watches the shot, it makes them track through and backwards and forwards, which would be really good if there's a lot of action happening in your scene and you want your audience to be watching backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards. Then you've got spirals, and they tend to suck the audience in, because again, you're following the line, so you keep following in and in and in and in and in and in and in. So this is really good for more like hypnotic shots. This is good for like more thriller, horror kind of pieces where you're going down a staircase and you just want the audience to sink into the shot while they're watching it. And then you've got lines, and lines in a shot just help guide the audience through the piece, which brings me on to my next subject, guiding lines. Now, what are guiding lines? Guiding lines is literally a line in your frame that takes you to the main subject of the shot, and you can use anything for this. A very, very common one, particularly in photography, is roads. If you see travel photography, you'll often find photographs of a road where the road is here and then it tapers in and it gets further away with a central subject in the middle of the frame. It can be literally anything. It can be roads, it can be a line of trees going down a path, it can be buildings. If you have a line of buildings and that's guiding you down to someone in the bottom of the frame. But you can use people. You can have people sat in a line and have them all looking towards the main character who's performing a bit of a monologue. And for a bit of a shot, obviously you don't want to be about for the full shot because that could get quite distracting, but for one of the shots you can have, or like an establishing shot of the monologue, you can have all people staring off, just like have them all looking this way, and have the protagonist about here in frame and have all of them looking towards him like a line of extras. You can have someone actually pointing over there, or like have someone all the way back here pointing down there, and have something here as the subject, and have the arm of your character be a guiding line. Anything really. And really that's what all of these shapes have been. The S-curve and the spiral, they're all made up of guiding lines, and it's a matter of putting these guiding lines into a shape that points you towards where you want your audience to be looking, and in the order that you want them to be looking in. Think about where you want their audience to be looking. So like in a spiral, for example, they're going to start on the outside and work their way in. on an S curve, they're going to be going backwards and forwards, tend to be from the top of the screen down to the bottom and then back up and back down and back up and back down. With a straight line, it can be in any direction, but as long as you're pushing towards something. And again, this kind of comes into the rule of thirds again. You want the subject to be on one of those key points or in a key portion of the frame, so when your guiding line is going towards that to help lead the gaze of your audience. Lastly, I feel like this is going to be a lot shorter of a video than the previous 2 episodes, but we're going to be talking about the golden ratio. Now, the golden ratio is not just a compositional tool. It is a huge thing in the world, in maths, in science, in nature. Bit of a brain experiment. I wanted to have a look at these numbers. I'm going to put up a load of numbers on the screen just here. It's just like, it seems like an ordinary list of numbers, don't they? However, these numbers come in a lot in the world around us. So for example, flowers will often have flower petals that are within those numbers. So you'll have flower petals with 3 petals or 5 petals or something like that. The seed count of a fruit tends to be one of those numbers. Like apples often have 5 seeds, bananas often have 3 seeds. I'm not a maths person, so just bear with me. Basically, you take a sum. So the first sum is 0 plus 1 equals 1, obviously. And then what you do is you take the answer to that sum and you take the highest number that are being added together, and then you add those 2 together to make the next one. So it would be 0 plus 1 equals 1, 1 plus 1 equals 2. And then you take the 2 and the 1 to make 1 plus 2 equals 3. Then you take the 2 and the 3, 2 plus 3 equals 5, 3 plus 5 equals 8, 8 plus 5 equals 13. And so on. Hey guys, Editing Jack here, just a really quick one. I wasn't really doing an amazing job in what you were just watching there at explaining what the golden ratio actually is. So basically, it's the sequence of numbers that I was just saying there, where the ratio between the numbers is roughly 1.6. It varies as you go through the beginning of the sequence, but it's all generally vaguely 1.6. And what I mean by that is basically, if you times 5 by 1.6, you will get 8. If you times 8 by 1.6.25, you will get 13. So there's variations on it, but it's 1 to 1.6 is the ratio. For every 1 on this side, you get 1.6 on the other side. Yeah, that's what I was kind of trying to get at. I've edited it out, but yeah, I just didn't do a great job. Anyway, back to what we were talking about. That is found in nature as well. If you look at the human arm, you'll see that the distance between the shoulder and the elbow is 1, and the elbow and the distance from the elbow to the tip of your finger is 1 and a little bit more than half of that. So you see how this happens all around us in nature. However, let's bring it back to photography for a second, just for a sec. If you split the screen into 1 and 1 plus a bit more, and then you do that again into the bigger section, and again into the bigger section, and again into the bigger section, and again into the bigger section, you'll find this spiral that will naturally occur. And if you draw a line from corner to 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 corner, you'll see a nice curve that, again, you'll see all the time in nature, in weather patterns, in how the universe is formed. You'll see, like, if you see pictures of the Milky Way galaxy, you'll see that it's a spiral, but it's not a spiral that goes perfectly central. It goes off on a slight side and into a corner slightly. And that is that golden ratio come back in again. Where does this bring us in photography? Because that's just getting real deep into a completely different kettle of fish that I am not smart enough in terms of science and maths to really be talking about. So where does this come into shot composition and photography and videography? When doing an establishing shot, it is great to use, and people often use, the golden ratio and this curve, this spiral that goes from corner to middle or just past the midpoint to up and around and into this little corner here. And look where this corner is. It's right on that rule of thirds. It's right on that point. And if you do it from a different direction, it'll come over here. If you do it from up here, it'll come around here. Same over this way. And then if you have guiding lines that I was talking about earlier to help guide the viewer's eye in a bit of a spiral into that point of interest, right in the middle of that spiral, it'll help make a nice visually cohesive shot. Now, obviously, you don't want to be doing this for every single shot that you're doing in your piece. Just like you don't want to be doing the rule of thirds for every single shot in your piece, just like you don't want to be doing symmetrical shots in every shot of your piece. But there's a place for it. You often see with landscape photography people using rolling hills, coming down and coming back up again as a bit of a curve, that golden ratio curve. You often find people use trees that reach over to kind of create that spiral in and of itself. You don't have to use the full curve and the full spiral, just like a little bit of it, or the first little bit of it. Just like you don't have to use every single point of the rule of thirds, just like you don't have to have both the foreground, the subject, and the background being symmetrical. When using these compositional tools that we've talked about over the past 3 weeks, it's important to know that you don't have to follow it to the point. Photography and cinematography and filmmaking is an art form, it's not a science, so you don't need to be following everything to the letter to make a really nice shot. All these rules and guidelines they're there to help you create a nice looking shot. They are not if you don't do a shot like this, it won't look nice. It is just to help you make a nice looking shot. That's all it is. But yeah, anyway, that is time today. I hope you enjoyed this video. My framing is oh, my head's gone. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned something. I hope you at least found it vaguely entertaining, if not interesting or educational. Anyway, I'm getting distracted. I'll see you guys next week. Bye!